Now, we're going to finish the show this week with something very special. And you know what? There isn't a day goes by when somebody out there, especially taxi drivers, mention the late, great broadcasting giant Gerry Anderson to me. Well, a new anthology website is up and running, all thanks to Gerry's family. And I'm pleased to say that David Anderson joins us now in the studio. David, how are you?
Great. What about yourself?
Very well, thank you. So I said in the intro there isn't a day goes by when somebody doesn't mention your dad to me. He is still much missed by those thousands and thousands of listeners that he had every day.
Oh, he certainly is. I mean, I'm the same as well. People are constantly talking about him and such warm memories about people, basically laughs people had, which is nice.
Yeah. Though those laughs, people can watch little clips now online, especially the on-air cartoon series, which was amazing. And this is kind of how the whole website came about, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've been speaking for the family. We've been talking for years that a lot of his work is in different places. And, you know, if, like yourself, myself, we would know where to go to find different places, but someone who just maybe take a notion, it's like, where do you go? Because it's on YouTube, on BBC Sounds, and a bunch of different places. So we thought, by putting a website in, which is geraldmichaelanderson.com, which is what he referred to himself as, Gerald Michael Anderson, it's really one place where you can go, and we've got the on-the-air clips, which is the animated clips from Flickerpix. We've got some of the podcasts from the Gerry Anderson Show from BBC, which Conor McKay pulled together. Yeah. We've got a few other links from his TV, like A City Dreamin', Mark Macaulay, and then a couple of links to his two books, Surviving Stroke City and Head. So just a nice kind of start with some of his work, you know.
One of the clips went online recently, and I mean, I think it's got something like 8 million views already, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. I mean, there's a guy in Dublin called Paul O'Kane, posted it around a week ago, and it just went completely viral. My phone just kept buzzing. People were kind of sending messages saying, you know, have you seen this? But I think the audience that reached, which was incredible, there was like old kind of listeners who were happy to hear him again, expats who kind of tuning back into the humour here, like. And then what I thought was brilliant was really almost children of people. There's one guy, he said that he remembers listening to my dad when he was small in his granny's kitchen, and he never quite got it. Yeah. And now he's listening back thinking, right, that's actually quite funny, you know, so people are discovering him again, so that's kind of cool.
And of course, for rediscovering as well, the books are a great way to start as well, both Heads and Surviving in Stroke City. What I love about the books are, when you're reading them, you actually hear Gerry's voice talking to you through the book.
Yeah, he always kind of, he writes the way he talks, which is kind of funny, like, so I always thought that was nice. I find they're super reassuring, sitting reading them, like, they're kind of nice.
Yeah. What was it like having the great man for a dad then?
Can I say unconventional? I mean, that's just what he was like all the time. So, I mean, for me, it was funny. He was always that kind of sense of humour. He would always be making you think. He would never give you a straight answer. He would make you think about stuff, and always massively impacted by kind of music. So we'd always talk about music and kind of what was happening. So, I mean, he was fantastic, super encouraging. And again, it's just the way you see him is that's how he was. So I've had many decades of that.
Yeah. But I mean, there was a very private side to him as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, he was totally private. I mean, one of the funny things, he always would have kept a lot of himself kind of out of the radio. You know, like, for example, he never really mentioned me or the family directly. He would have, when I had my first daughter, he would have played the odd song that was her name in it, or he would have said congratulations, but he would never been too direct about it, so he was always quite private about his own life. And actually, I would say maybe quite shy sometimes as well, which was funny.
Yeah. When you used to get the feedback from people listening to him on the radio, I suppose it's then, as a family, you realised how big he actually was and how much he actually meant to everybody here in Northern Ireland.
Oh, completely. I mean, it was funny. I think he enjoyed what he did, and you never really know how it's landing with people, because, you know, as you know yourself, you hear back from the noisy people.
Yes.
The quiet people who enjoy it, you don't really know. I had a great comment on Twitter that someone said, I wonder if he ever met Terry Wogan, wouldn't that be such a great pair? I was like, well, they were great friends. They did loads of stuff together. And
the clip is on the NITV archive page as well.
That's right.
Together, it's up there.
You know, and because you forget that he'd been around the BBC for decades, so he'd met pretty much everyone, and then all the music people beforehand.
Yes.
So he had this massive network of people that he just call in and talk to. You know.
I always have this brilliant vision in my head that he's up there watching down on us, and him and Geordie Tufter sitting together having a little drink.
Well, if they are, they probably wouldn't be watching. They'd be sitting talking to each other, so they'd forget what they were doing. But he was really a people person. He would really connect with people as he was sitting and work. So I mean, I thought it was, that's such a nice thought to think that he would be doing that.
And the listeners were such a massive part of the show as well. You think of all the characters that he brought on. They all had, like him, all had these amazing stories to tell.
Yeah, I think he's tapped into a very, I would say, unique sense of humour, you know, and it's hard to describe it, but you would know, I mean, it's all things about cowboys and Indians and stuff, and it's just a very specific way of thinking, but a lot of people tapped into that.
Yes.
You know, I think someone said that he was very kind of non-judgmental and open about the humour. It wasn't very sort of, you know, it wasn't too away from people. So I think that was, that really opened it up to lots of different audiences. And what I found interesting, he'd get a new audience all the time. Yeah. Every now and then he'd say to me, all the students are listening, because he get all these letters from people in Queen's and Ulster University. So that was always a real kick, you know. Indeed.
You were on the Antiques Roadshow recently as well with his guitar. I mean, that was a stunning guitar.
Yeah, it was. I think it was like a 1960s Fender Precision bass, and he's had that guitar since since before I was born. And he always used to tell me that bass was hand-checked by Mr. Fender himself. They don't make them like that anymore. And I'd be like, yeah, dead on. So I used to kind of play it a little bit, and he always told me it was worth a lot of money, and I never really believed him, of course. But Antiques Roadshow proved he was right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They put a price of around I think 8,000 on it, like, which is pretty, which is a lot, like, you know.
And is that the guitar that's on the front cover of Heads with him?
Yes.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah,
yes,
it was a red Fender, but he scraped all the red paint off because it was cooler to have wood.
I used to love talking to him about the rock and roll years, especially the time in Canada spent with Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawks. I mean, that was a wild time, wasn't it?
Oh, it was incredible. And I mean, you could picture how I was like when I was a teenager into music. I'd be listening to someone like Bob Dylan, and he'd be like, I met him, you know. I'd be like, what? He said, I sat beside him in a party once. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, he said, do you know the big white hat he wears with the feather? Like, yeah, he was wearing that. I'd be like, really? I said, what did you say to him? He says, it just is all right. So I think he was around all those people, but again, you know, you also remember he was super cool as well. So he wasn't going to, you know, be starstruck. I think the only person he was ever starstruck with was David Attenborough.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and he there was a funny story. I think he came up to him and told him Blue Planet was great. David Attenborough went, yes, thank you.
Brilliant. Well, I've got some clips standing by now, including the fabulous story that he tells about Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawks and some others from our archive as well. But in the meantime, if people want to check out the website, it is geraldmichaelanderson.com, isn't it? Yep, that's right. And we have a wee sort of subscribe area. So again, as we add more content, you know, you'll get an email as that comes on. So I encourage people to come on to geraldmichaelanderson.com, leave your email address and subscribe. We'll not send you too many emails, and then you can even just leave a comment. A lot of people are leaving comments with nice stories, which is brilliant to hear. And I would imagine there's a lot of people out there who have photographs with him as well, and I'm sure you'd love to see those photographs as well. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, again, the idea of the website is to build a community around his work, you know, so there's lots of stuff around, so we're kind of going to collect a lot together, just so other people can enjoy, you know. So. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, David, good to see you as always. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you, Robin. Appreciate it. So do check out the website, geraldmichaelanderson.com. Here's some stuff from the NVTV archives, featuring myself and the late, great Jerry Anderson.
Well, we were playing this particular place called Peterborough, actually. And I noticed this guy came in a few nights. He didn't look like the rest of the people. Kind of long leather coat stuff, you know, and blonde hair and kind of, you know, civilized looking. And he came in and he seemed to be watching the band, and we noticed that because nobody else watched the band. So he came up to me at the end of the week, Saturday night. He said, do you want to do an audition? I said, for what? He said, for a band. I said, ooh. I said, what band? He said, Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawks. I said, who are they? And he went, what? I said, I don't know. He said, if I was you, I would. Uh-huh. And I went, well, okay. Well, what's the story? He said, well, if you want to, he said, do you want to do it? I said, I would do it if I were you. Yeah. And he said, okay. He said, and I said, well, the only time I could do it would be tomorrow because we're moving tomorrow and then we're going elsewhere. But we're not moving till the afternoon. Could you get somebody to pick me up or something in the morning whenever these guys are in bed? And then I'll just say that I'm going somewhere else. I'll meet them somewhere else, wherever we're going on the Monday. Yeah. You know, I mean, could you drive me? I said, oh yeah. I said, don't worry about all that. He said, somebody will come and collect you about maybe 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I'm standing outside this motel, and this big Rolls Royce arrives out.
Yeah.
And I kind of stepped back. I said, "Whoa!" And it stopped. I
Yeah.
thought it was, just passing. And there's this guy with a joint, and looking out the window. He said, "Are you an Irish kid?" I went, "Yes." He said, "Jump in." You see? And I jumped in the front. He said, "No." He said, "In the back." He said, "Live a little."
Yeah.
I said, "What's this?"
Yeah.
And I looked at the Rolls Royce. It had a big hawk on the side of it. So he said, "We're going to Toronto." And I said, "Are we?" Because that was 150 miles away, He said, "Yeah." He said, "There's been a change of plans. All the other guys are going to be there. Some kind of a do on there." He said, "You should go to that." She said, "You're okay until tomorrow night, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah."
Yeah.
He said, "You can stay there Monday tonight." All right. So I jumped in, go to Toronto. And it's we arrived there about kind of 3 or 4 o'clock. There's kind of a party on, and lots of strange people, hippies, journalists, strange women, dogs, everything,
Yeah.
in this palatial mansion.
Right.
Palatial mansion. It's like a Sistine Chapel. And the guy that was there, the drummer guy was there, and he came over, and there was this guy in the corner called Ronnie Hawkins, a big white hat, cigar, So he brings me over and he said, "This is the Irish kid." You see, I'm going, I have a name. He said, "You an Irish kid?" I said, "All right."
At this stage, did you know who he was and how big he actually was?
I didn't. Well, I talked to the guy.
Yeah, in the car, yeah.
The guy in the car told me.
Yeah.
And I was asking about it. He was amazed I didn't know anything. And he told me about Bob Dylan and about John Lennon and about the band and all that kind of stuff, about the connection, about this guy was the greatest guy in the world, stuff like that, And if you join this band, you fly and all that kind of thing. So I arrived in, kind of wired up a bit. And he said, "Go and have a drink." I said, "All right." So I got into kind of bad company and got quite drunk. I ended up in a very compromising situation. Anyway,
Right.
I woke up the next morning, you see, and I go, and this knock on the door, "Yeah, breakfast," this kind of thing. So I goes downstairs, a bunch of strange people around the table, sitting with a hat and cigar, and he says to me, "You drank all my whiskey, son." I said, "I'm sorry." He said, "That's all right." I said, "I have to go to London, Ontario. I have to be there kind of this afternoon. And it's a bit late now, isn't it?" I said, "You wanted me to do an audition?" He said, "You already did that." I said, "Did I?" I said, "No, I wasn't that drunk. I don't remember doing it." He said, No. He said, "You don't understand. I can't do his accent. Don't understand, boy." He said, "The audition is not about Dwayne, the guy, the drummer. The drummer says you can play all right." He said, "That's all right. He knows. And you can sing a bit." He said, "That's all I want." He said, "All we need to know is what kind of guy you are."
Yeah.
Quickest way I know to find that out, get a guy drunk. You can see the real guy right away.
Brilliant.
You see, you take 3 or 4 weeks to find out. And by that time, you're in the band. He said, "You're no saint," he said, "but you're all right." He said, "You're not crazy."
Always good to see Jerry back on our TV screens. Do check out the website, which is geraldmichaelanderson.com. That's all we have time for on the show this week. Thank you for watching. Thank you to all the guests, and I'll see you back here same time next week. Bye-bye.